Hello friends, welcome. It's been a minute since I've made a video. Life has been very busy. I've been swamped with trying to find work, something more in line with spiritual work, but it's incredibly hard to find apparently. Anyway, so I was getting lost in the stress of, paying the bills and finding a job that I semi-enjoy. Although technically it doesn't really matter what I do. It's about how we do what we do versus what we actually do. So it's hard to remember that sometimes, of course, but what I want to talk about in this moment in time, the present moment, which is infinite and eternal, right now. I want to talk about this awesome guy over here. His name's Ramana Maharshi. So old school VHS. You see Maharshi, the name Ramana Maharshi. There it is. But yeah, this video, it's actually on YouTube. It's on my YouTube station under the Enlightenment tab. It's free on there. It's about an hour long, and it is amazing if you're into self-inquiry. If you're new to self-inquiry, that's what I'm here for. So, what is self-inquiry? First, it really all comes down to asking yourself, who am I? So, take a moment to ask yourself, just say in your mind, you can say it out loud or quietly, who am I? And just listen. What's the first answer that comes up? Is it the obvious, like, oh well, I am this body. I am a human, a Homo sapien named Ryan Ostheimer, and I am a yogi, and I play guitar, and then you start listing all these things that your physical body does, correct? Because that's who you are, and that's who I am. But the question, who am I, goes much deeper than, and that's the whole point, it's to sort of turn your attention, your awareness, and go deeper into who you really are, besides just the physical body. Because the physical body, this body is impermanent, and it's obvious through age. If you just chronologically speaking, 100 years goes by, and then our bodies are degraded and practically gone. 500 years, and then they're dust, or however long it takes for our bodies to decompose. But point is, our bodies are incredibly temporary, and a lot of human suffering exists because we're so identified with something that is so temporary. We're holding on to ice, in the summertime as it's melting, and it's creating all the stress of trying to keep the ice frozen and not melt or evaporate. When instead we could just release the fact that, wait, I'm not the ice, I'm not the impermanent, I am something more, and in which case you're not attached, and you don't fear death, you don't fear the unknown, and you don't fear life even. Ironically, it's interesting because because of our fear of death, we fear life, we fear living, to our fullest expression, taking risks and various things. Going back to the question, who am I? So this is a very interesting question because the only real correct answer is silence. And it's an awareness, it's a realization, it's an aha moment that you can have. When you're listening for an answer, you ask yourself, who am I? And you're listening. And you hear a thought, whatever it is that's trying to guess, hypothesize, decide who you are, tell you who you are. But that's not who you are, because that is just sounds of thought that are playing in your mind. So who are you? And you just keep asking this question. Any thought is a pointer to an answer, but all answers are made of thought, right? And all thoughts are not you. So directly speaking, any answer that you get that as to the question, who am I, is misleading. The true answer to who am I is when you realize that you're not any of those thoughts. You are not the mind. You are not your story. You are not your physical body. You are not your ego. You are not your opinions. You are not your belief structures, religions, levels of intelligence or lack thereof. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. Nor are you your future. So who are you, right? And when I guess one way to figuring out who you are is figuring out who you are not. But there's a reason why there are so many books and so many teachings on self-realization, because it's incredibly deep, and it's not something that I can necessarily just give you the answer to. It's much more. I can give you the path, and you still have to walk it, right? You still have to do the work. You still have to actually take one step at a time. And how do you do that? You look for teachers. You look for teachers that seem to understand it, that seem to have a grasp and have something that you want, right? Ramana Maharshi is definitely a good one. There are lots of other good ones too. Really, all you have to do is type in self-inquiry or self-realization. Krishnamurti is another great one, as well as some of the more modern teachers like Eckhart Tolle and Ram Dass. There's plenty of teachings on self-inquiry, but really, all that stuff, while it can be helpful, it can also be limiting, because again, no matter how many times you hear it or how many times you read it or you memorize the verses or the poetry or the whatever, you're not going to get it until you fully ask that question yourself. Who am I? You can close your eyes to help keep away distractions. And you ask yourself, who am I? And you're listening, you're looking at that question, you're listening to that question. And the real answer can only be found from your desire to find that answer, right? And willingness to let go of who you already thought you were. For the last however old you are is how long you've been holding on to this other idea of who you are. Why? Well, naturally, our society, teaches us, well, you are, what you go to college for. You are, a lot of people identify themselves by their careers or by their political beliefs or their religious beliefs or their just general ways of being human beliefs, morals and ethics. And those can all be beautiful things, but in the end, they're all still parts of the mind. And the truth of who you are and who I am is beyond mental concepts. It's beyond thoughts. It's beyond sounds occurring within the brain. And it's also the great equalizer, because when you acknowledge being, when you acknowledge pure awareness beyond the physical forms, then all forms of life are one. All forms of life are equal. It's the great equalizer. Animals, humans, even smaller levels of life like plants or insects, bugs, and various things. Those are different forms of awareness. They're experiencing, and the fact that they are an experiencer of a reality that we share, they are a being, and in that being they are equal, because the size of their ship, the size of their vehicle for experience does not matter. It's just the fact that they are the navigator of their vehicle of life, for their experience of life. So a fly versus a human versus an elephant versus some species on a different planet, out of the billions of planets in our universe. We're all equal. And then you could take it a step further too, if you believe in angels or higher deities and beings and various entities, then they too are equal to us as we are equal to them. So it's a great equalizer. But it's very tricky, because more than likely you're going to be determined to understand it through thought. And that's because your whole life, that's what you've been taught. That the only way to understand something, the only way to know something, is to know it through thinking, through contemplating it, through going pros and cons and yeses and nos. But you can get lost so quickly in the duality, in the Advaita, which is non-duality. It kind of rises above that circle of thought that's basically never ending. I mean, seemingly infinite, and is the reason why so many people get so close to the answer, but never fully, it never fully clicks. And it's because they're just holding on way too much to understanding it through mind. You can't understand it through mind. The mind's a tool, and we use this tool to point to the understanding. If it wasn't for the communication and language that I'm using right now, I couldn't even get close to expressing to you what I'm trying to express to you right now. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is not the answer. It's your experience of what I'm saying. It's your interpretation of what I'm saying, and it's your experience is the key word. Not even your understanding as much as it is your experience of the truth versus the intellectual, conceptual understanding of the truth. So, self-realization, very powerful path, very direct path, and a very personal path. Nobody can really tell you you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. You just keep going within yourself. You keep turning the mirror, you keep looking into the mirror, you keep turning it in on you. How am I? What is this with me? Who am I in the world around me? The full self-realization also is a realization of oneness with all beings, like I had said, with the animals and everything being equal, but that there's no separation of self. You listening right now, we aren't separated. We are actually the same being. I know it's hard to really conceptualize, right? Why? Because it's unfamiliar. Why? Because our society teaches everything except that we are all separate beings and we have to protect ourselves, and we have, it's me world that we live in. You work and you have your money, and then you buy your stuff and you protect your stuff and you carry on with your things and your story and your friends and yours and mine. It's all game in the separation. And in truth, in being, in self-realization, I am you, literally, and you are me speaking right now. Ironically, this is what all the religions, all the saints of religions were saying as well, but in very different languages. Anyway, that's my little note on self-realization. I hope you enjoy. Feel free to, it can also be used as a mantra. You can ask yourself over and over again, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And as soon as you ask that question, who am I, you start to listen. That internal ear starts to pay more attention to the thoughts in your head, and you start to disidentify with those thoughts, because you're not those thoughts. You are not your conditioning. You are not your beliefs. You are not your fears. You're much more, and this question will lead you to that. But just remember, all thoughts are potential pointers. But often, when you ask somebody, or you ask a group of intellectual thinkers or conscious people, in a forum or whatever, you ask them, who am I? They'll just think you're lost in some, existential crisis type thing. And it's not that. It's much deeper than that. That's just, they're labeling it as that because it makes them uncomfortable. And they don't know how else to respond to it. Besides, oh, well, I have a label for that. This is the label that goes with that one. Yep, click, okay, organized, done, move on. And they never get the benefit of the actual question, which is like probably one of the most important questions you could possibly ask in existence is, who are you in existence? It's a very, very big question. So, yes, who am I? I love you. Have a wonderful present moment until we meet again.